It's the Final Word Cricket Podcast, Ashes Daily here at the Oval. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon once more with gusto. We were at the Oval, Geoff, about 7 weeks ago for the World Test Championship final. So much has happened between times. Perhaps not quite the same sting in this test than would have otherwise been the case had England won last week in the slop at Manchester. But the emphasis from the Australian team at all of their media engagements, we don't care about last week. It's all about winning it here for the first time since 01.
Last week is last week, man. The past is the past, man. We perceive time in a linear fashion, man. We're moving on into the future. And yet, here we are back where we started. It's as if we've gone back, as it were, to the future. Something that's never come up on this show before. It does feel strangely cyclical. I suppose that makes sense because it's the Oval, a round shape. There is no end, there's no beginning to an oval. You always end up where you are. Nothing's happened in the last few weeks, really. Nothing important, nothing of note, except for the accelerating towards the brink of climate collapse, as evidenced with Antarctic sea ice going through the floor and most of Europe burning down.
Nice upbeat stuff to start the podcast today. It's also the home of the Ashes. Ashes in terms of heat.
What will be left of human civilization?
Yeah. There's a mural painted on the wall of the that obituary that was placed in the paper all those years ago. Jim Wallace has written about that in The Guardian, and next to it, underneath it, home of the Ashes, or birthplace of the Ashes, the Oval. And this is, we've described it before as the people's ground. There's a better energy around this place than Lord's when you compare the two London venues. It's a venue where Australia haven't enjoyed a lot of success over the years, although they did win here against England in 2015. They did beat it in India recently, but you want to go back, it's been fairly lean pickings here since 2001, and even before that too. But we've seen the surface against India in county cricket through the season as well. Whether you play a spinner or not, it's no sure thing. It used to be the track which would get plenty of turn late in the summer, but we're still in July and there's plenty of grass on there too.
Yeah, they didn't mind a draw here at the Oval historically. Quite a few of those as things go through. I heard a bit of chat about rain as well.
Yeah.
Let's just not even think about it. Let's just not even worry about it. If it rains, it rains. But I think you have to have a spinner, regardless of whether it's dry, regardless of whether it's a turning track, just for tempo, just for control, just for being able to rotate your fast bowlers. It's a classic for a reason. Sometimes convention should be overthrown, but sometimes convention is convention because it works. And look, Pat Cummins was he didn't go all the way on his presser. He was asked about whether they missed a spinner at Leeds. He said, well, I would have liked about 5 other different bowlers at Manchester because I didn't have the options, or I would have tried any option, basically, was the subtext. But it didn't let them change up the pace. Yeah, they had Travis Head bowl a couple of overs, but that wasn't the same thing. It didn't let them try to change the pace of the bowling, try to tempt England into a mistake when they were going at the ball, and that's likely to be the way that they play again.
The other storyline through the Australian squad in the last few days since we last spoke to you at Manchester was the longevity of David Warner. There were rumours swirling, and that is true to say. There were rumours swirling towards the end of the test at Manchester that maybe he'd jump off here and call it quits regardless of the result, and kind of use that as the incentive this week. Win the Ashes in England for the first time, obviously, in his career or any of their careers. It goes back to 01 before any of them had made their international debuts, of course. But he watered all that down yesterday, said nothing doing here. In fact, Warner being Warner, and it shows even now deep into his career, there's no one better at mastering a press conference than him. He said, well, if I make runs against Pakistan in the summer, I might keep playing. Johnny Farnham made plenty of comebacks, so he's not actually going to do that, I should add. But it's an emblem of how Warner is going to keep messing with the media all the way to the end.
He backed down from it straight away. Yeah, and he was like, no, I'm joking. I promise.
5 minutes later.
I promise. I swear to you, it's not going to last past the SCG, which, of course, as people will point out, means he still has to get selected to play. And I don't think that is a 100% sure thing, particularly if he doesn't make runs here. You would be well within your rights as a selectorial group to say, you know what, you've had your time. Australian selections, there's a pride in making hard calls in the history of Australian selection tables, like Ian Healy not getting the farewell test at the Gabba and everybody booing Adam Gilchrist onto the pitch, and one match later he plays one of the great innings in Test history and gets them home in Hobart. We know these kind of stories. We know about Martin Love getting punted just after he'd made 100, to make way for whoever it was coming back in. Damien Martin, Steve Waugh, who knows? Can't remember anymore. All these things have been lost to the mists of time. So you would be within your rights as a group of selectors to say, no, we start fresh at the start of the Australian summer. But so this may end up being his last Test match.
Sure.
It's not really in his hands.
That might be the last time that David Warner does a Test press conference as well, which would be fitting given how playful he was. But he'll, of course, be at the 50 over World Cup in India later this year. England are going to go, I wouldn't say sentimental. James Anderson is keeping his spot, same 11 as the side that drew at Manchester last week. Ben Stokes did say that Anderson is still their best bowler. So, whether he's saying that for effect or whether he actually believes it, either way, it typifies the way they've backed Anderson through the series, even though he's only taken 3 wickets. I thought he bowled better at Manchester than his figures suggested, but still, he'll get a chance here at the Oval to do as he did back in 2009 and play an influential role in a Test match at this ground.
He's still our best bowler. It felt a bit to me like Paul McCartney writing to Ringo Starr and saying, "You are the best drummer in the world," after Ringo cracked the shits when they used drum machines through the recording sessions. Although you and I have tended to fall on the side of Anderson in this back and forth about whether they should move on. I think people are very reactive when they watch cricket and they judge players based on a couple of matches. When you're older, when you're towards the end of a career, it's like, well, you've had 2 bad games, you must be done. You must be absolutely. Whereas if you're in the middle of a career, you're allowed to have a couple of games where your stats aren't that good. It's not like he's bowled terribly through the 3 tests that he has played. It's just that he hasn't returned bags of wickets. Maybe he's helped other bowlers take wickets. That's the kind of argument that's really hard to prove. There's no strict data on there's correlation and causation, as we know they're different things. But look, I'm glad to see him get another attempt on a pitch that's, out of all of the ones he's bowled on this summer, this is probably the one that looks like it might help the most. Yeah,
it might be, and the fact that Stuart Broad's going to play 5 on the bounce when he was probably outside of England's top 3 before that Ireland Test match, so it all comes full circle for the veterans. Australia are talking about the spinner. If they do go with Murphy, then who they leave out will be interesting. It feels like it's probably Cameron Green, although Green bowled beautifully here in the World Test Championship final, which is a while ago now, and a lot's happened since, but they'll want to have that extra seam option. If they do play Murphy in favour of one of the seamers, out-and-out seamers, be it Hazelwood, if they're reluctant to go back-to-back tests with him, given his recent history form, or Stark if he hasn't come up from his shoulder complaint last week, that'd be 2 seamers, 2 all-rounders and a spinner. I'm not sure whether they'll be completely comfortable with that.
No, I don't think so. I think we drew... So at the press conference today, Pat Cummins said, we don't have a team, the selectors are meeting now. But he basically gave away their thinking. He said spin was the main decision to be made, which means they'll be leaning that way. He said that Mitchell Marsh and Mitchell Stark have both come up in terms of fitness. They'll have one more look at them tomorrow just to make sure that they can both bowl, but that means that they're both getting picked effectively. Yeah. And he said that Michael Nesser has been incredibly unlucky, and he hopes he has many more opportunities to play Test cricket in the future, which suggests he's not playing this match. So the only ways that could change is if Mitchell Stark wakes up tomorrow and his shoulder's bad again. They might bring Nesser in, but if all goes as planned, that won't happen. It'll be Stark, and it'll be Marsh, and it'll be Murphy, which means Green sits out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd play the third seamer. I wouldn't back Hazelwood back-to-back. There's no reflection on Hazelwood the bowler, just Hazelwood the rig, the body. He has had a habit of breaking down of late.
Hazelwood, Al McPherson,
right there,
together at last.
Right there. I wouldn't want either of them to. I wouldn't want either of them to break down. I wouldn't want Hazelwood to break down in the first innings, playing back-to-back Test matches with, I guess, a bit more of a turnaround time than would have otherwise been the case, having not bowled a second time at Manchester, but bowled a lot of overs in very taxing circumstances. So I actually would play Nesser. Actually, that might segue us nicely to the Final Word Hall of Fame. The Final Word Hall of Fame is brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. The Ashes summer, this is good, I love this. The Ashes summer is coming to an end, but settle down, Judith Durham over there, because the carnival is not over yet at Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City.
Did Judith Durham sing The Carnival is Over?
Yeah, the Seekers, man, the Seekers. Don't let rain spoil your fun this summer with over 700 places to eat, shop and play across the UK's biggest shopping centres. Whether you want to slide tackle your mates during a game of golf at Putt Shack at Westfield London, or battle for bragging rights over ping pong, beer pong, darts, pool, karaoke at Bat and Ball, Westfield Stratford City, there's always good times to be had, whatever the weather. Our colleagues in the press crew have been playing so much table tennis in Manchester. We were waiting for 2.5 hours for David Warner to do his press conference yesterday, a series of reschedules and whatever, and we spent a lot of time talking about how they can find somewhere to play table tennis this week in London, I'm going to direct them straight to bat and ball at Westfield, Stratford City. Does not come any better than that. Geoff, any nominations?
Well,
I think you weren't too happy with Harry Brooks' morality yesterday.
I just thought, in terms of saying, like, you want to be careful in a press conference because you say one thing, you say one phrase, you say unselectable at the moment or whatever it is, and then it gets put in inverted commas and it gets carried around. Now, if you've had an ear on the way things have been talked about this series, you know that moral victories, that's not really a phrase you can get away with anymore. And Harry Brooks says, if we win here and it's 2-2, morally we will have won the series. So morally won the first test match at Edgbaston, morally won the second test match at Lord's.
Without a doubt.
Actually won the third test match and morally won the draw at Old Trafford. And then even if it's 2-2, it'll be a moral win in the series. So I just thought maybe having heard the phrase so much, it's like he couldn't help saying it. It's like, don't think about an elephant. It just comes out of your mouth. But, maybe if you're England, just don't say the word moral. Yeah,
Brooks says he doesn't read any media or any social media, so I can kind of get why that word may not carry the same weight that it does.
Obviously wormed its way in.
Yeah, like on social media, we're very online in these jobs and we know what the moral ashes discourse means, and you've explained it pretty well there that England morally have been successful in 3 or 4 attempts.
Yeah.
Maybe,
morally,
or
actually.
Yeah,
they're leading 4-0.
I think Australia won morally at Leeds. I can't remember why now. Something happened that meant Australia had... I certainly argued the case that morally Australia won at Leeds. I don't remember why.
I thought Australia was scared of fast bowling at Leeds. That was the story there, because Mark Wood came out and bounced them out in the first innings, or blew through them anyway, the 5-0 at the end. So morally they lost that, as well as actually losing it. So maybe they're actually 5-0 down, Australia, and they could be 6-0 if this is another moral win here.
They can go the full Glenn McGrath and lose the series 6-0 here at the Oval. Who would have thought a couple of months ago? I want to return to Michael Nesser. I'm of the view that he is now the least lucky Australian cricketer of my lifetime. Prove me wrong. I mean, sure, you can say Stuart Law, but Stuart Law was always probably 8th or 9th in the depth chart. There was never really a time when Law was like next man in and waiting and waiting and waiting. Remember, Nesser before his test debut was either 12th man or in the squad for more consecutive test matches than anybody without making a debut. Got one at Adelaide against England a couple of years ago. Did fine, got a couple of wickets, but didn't dominate. Joe Richardson out-bowled him, and thus Nesser was down the pecking order again. Got back up.
They were both allegedly left out through injury at Melbourne.
Which got Boland.
Scott Boland takes 6 for 7. Yeah,
that's it. That's how it plays. But he still gets another chance at Adelaide last year, and simply because Alex Carey came up to the stumps in the second innings. When Nesser was taking 3 for, a lot of Australians said, he's too slow. He's too slow for Test cricket. The reason Carey was up to the stumps is the track was dead. They were trying to make the Test go more than at least 4 days because they didn't want the Windies to get rock and rolled in 3. So that track was as dead as I've seen in a pink ball Test match. He bowls the house down in England for Glamorgan throughout the course of not just this season, the last 4 seasons, but won't get a start here. I'd play him, but Pat Cummins was asked the question by Baz in the presser, one for the Nesser must-play crew. Is he going to play? And Cummins said he's one of my favourite bowlers too, but selection's tough and hopefully he'll get another opportunity. But it feels like for the second consecutive Ashes trip, Nesser will be a tourist only.
Yeah, it's sad. We wished that we could have seen him, but you got to bowl quicker. That's the only answer. You can't go to Adelaide, a ground with a statue of Darren Lehman out the front, and have the keeper come up to the stumps. That's not going to cut it. No, I mean, look, he's quicker than a bunch of the slowish swing bowlers who we've enjoyed the work of, your Vernon Philander types, Chad Sayers, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Muhammad Abbas. You can bowl 129 and move it, and that's fine. He bowls more like 133, 135 and moves it, and that's fine too. And he can also make hundreds in first-class cricket, which indicates he'd probably go okay with the stick in a test match.
And he's still fresh. He bowls as quickly as Chris Wakes. Anyway, it's not going to happen. In all probability, it'll be the big 3.
Unless there's a kidnapping. Just a little kidnapping. Just floating it. We haven't done it yet. Maybe Mitchell Starc gets in the wrong taxi tomorrow. I don't know. Just saying.
I reckon it'll be the big 3 and they'll leave out Cameron Green. I hope he didn't hear that. He's batting just over my right shoulder. That's where we'll leave it. Google Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. We've also put the link into the show notes of all the various summer activities you can enjoy there, be it sunshine, as it kind of was when we started recording, not quite anymore, or rain, as we're expecting at some point during the week. Final Word Daily, Adam Collins, Geoff Lemon. We've got our live show tonight, which I guess in theory you might see this and want to come down at the last minute. I think that's probably okay.
You can click the link. I don't know if it's fully sold out. There were because we added a couple of tickets, there might have been 10 left. So if you click the link and there are tickets there, you can come. If there aren't any tickets, don't come.
Don't come unless you got a ticket beforehand. That's with Steve Finn tonight. We'll publish some of that on our Patreon page after. If you want to become a patron and support what we do, patreon.com/The Final Word. Westfield London, Westfield, Stratford City, more extra, less ordinary. Him, me, bye.